Hi there, welcome to No Nonsense Whisky. My name's VinPF, and on today's episode we're going to be covering the Dalwhinnie 15 years. Now last year, probably about 10 months ago, I covered the Dalwhinnie Winter's Gold, and I have to admit that it was the first Dalwhinnie I'd ever tried. I hadn't tried this one before I had this bottle. Bit of a strange one to have just passed me by, but it's just one of those things. It just happened to happen. I didn't pick it up. One of those things. So, go back to last year, I covered the Winter's Gold, and I have to say, I wasn't that impressed by it. I'd heard people raving about Dalwhinnie, and it turns out it might have just been this one. But, you know, what they're doing there, it's an interesting concept for sure. You'd have to go and check out that video to find out more about it. But it didn't really sit well with me. It was an okay whiskey, but nothing to write home about. But in the comments section below, people were telling me, have you tried the Dalwhinnie 15? You should probably go and check that one out. Don't judge the distillery just on the Winter's Gold. So here we are. You know, eventually got around to picking this up. I have to say, this was pretty cheap. This was about £30 to £35. I can't remember exactly how much this was. But for a 15-year-old whiskey, already it's a pretty good value. But, you know, we'll get into the proper value itself once we've done the actual tasting. Now, this is part of the Diageo Classic Malts range, one of the 6. It's been around for quite a while now, which is a pretty cool thing. And I have to say, from what I understand from my kind of research on this thing, is that it's been pretty consistent over the years as well, which is it's an impressive feat. It is a 43% whiskey. It's probably added colour. It's probably chill filtered. But we're not here to talk about that too much. We're just here to kind of discuss the value of the whiskey and if it's really worth picking up if you're like me and it just passed you by. I have to say that I'd probably imagine that most of you watching this have already tried this and just want to see what I think. But if that's you, let me know in the comments below, because maybe I'm the only person who this just passed by. Just one of those things. Let's get into the actual tasting and see what we've got in the glass. Now, as I mentioned, it's probably added colour, but you know, it's got a good fresh look to it. Let's try on the nose then. Now, one of the things that you can really note about this is like just how it looks. It's a nice, fresh, clean malt. Bags of apples and pears, vanillas, honey, that sort of thing. It's quite a gentle nose, but there's a lot going on for the price that we've paid for it. Let's try on the palate. Okay. Now, surprisingly, the mouthfeel already is not so bad. You know, I was expecting it to be a lot thinner for 43%. I'm grateful for the 43. This could have easily been a 40%er. You're getting more honey notes from the nose over to the palate, and then kind of moving over into kind of peppery spiciness. And the kind of ending of that, I'm getting some kind of like buttery, biscuity, kind of like a, you know, that base you get on the bottom of a cheesecake. That kind of like biscuity thing going on. Let's have another sip. The finish is mostly peppery for me. Once the pepperiness has disappeared, it's kind of like quite drying, I think, but not like in a negative way. It's just a flavour profile. It's just one of those things. So I have to say, actually, yes, I'm pretty impressed with this. You know, for the £30 to £35 mark, even if you ignore the 15-year-old age statement, you know, like to make it that cheap, that consistent, I imagine that we're talking about sort of third, fourth refill on the barrels, bags of E150. But when it comes in a package like this for that sort of price, I don't think we can really complain too much about it. You know, it's certainly tastier than most whiskies in that bracket. There are obviously a few standouts for sure, but when you're talking about that kind of £30 plus or minus 5 bracket, it's difficult to find a consistently good whiskey that you're just happy to drink. And for me, this is one of those things. You know, this is going to be one of those whiskies that I plonk in front of people that are looking to get into whiskey. Often I recommend things like the Glenmorangie 10, the original, and stuff like that. But I think I'm going to add this one into my list of whiskies people should try, especially if they're looking for things that aren't peated, whatnot. I should say as well, in the marketing, they do say something about smoke, but for me, didn't really get much tasting notes of those smokiness going through. Maybe that's just me acclimatising to the peat a bit more. I don't really get those kind of lightly peated things anymore. I don't think it's just a little kind of waft of smoke apparently, but for me, not there. But yeah, I have to say this is a pretty good whiskey. It's way better than the Winter's Gold for my money. something that I'd be glad to have again. And as you can see, I'm enjoying this bottle, and I'm going to carry on enjoying it and share it with people who are looking to get into whiskey.